Oh boy. Decision fatigue is killing your ability to lead. This is such such a huge issue that Nettie and I see amongst our clients and colleagues, that by the end of the day, most women leaders are fried, burnt, crispy. We're not just burnt out, we are burnt crispy. We're not medium well, we're not rare, we are well done. By the end of the day, the brain is fried. It has left the building. Goodbye. And this is actually it's not just because of perimenopause or
It
menopause.
can be. It
It
can be
can
because
be.
of perimenopause.
You can be fried and not have a uterus. You can be
It's true.
fried and have a whole male parts.
All of them.
You
There's
can
so
have all
many.
the male parts and have all the decision fatigue. We're talking to women leaders, however. You could be fried at the end of the day and be all kinds of youthful.
That is true.
Um, and so be kind to yourself. If you are in a leadership position, you're the one who's called to be the decision maker. And what do you do when you have no decisions left to give?
I need that mug. Oh my gosh. That's going to be the mug for our podcast. I have just decided.
I am fresh out of decisions to give.
Yes,
Fresh
because the
out.
thing is, as a leader, this is your number one job. There's nobody else that is going to make the final decision but you. And we're going to talk about here today how you actually don't have to make all the decisions, but you do have to set up the criteria so that other people can. So let's jump in here, because honestly, I am really excited about the topic of decision fatigue, and getting a chance to define it for our listeners. If you're like, yeah, I'm crispy at the end of the day, but I didn't know it had anything to do with all of the decisions that I've been making, right? So if that's you, keep listening. What to do about it structurally, because you can solve decision fatigue structurally. You're not going to will yourself to make better decisions or more decisions. In fact, that's a recipe for disaster. And we're also going to talk about just how this is showing up in your leadership when decision fatigue is present, what's happening, you know, in the rest of your world, in your business, in your organization, when you are operating from this space. I'm excited about this because, as Victoria said, we see this. Both of us see this all day long in the clients that we're working with. And we want to make sure that you understand it so that you can start to do some things to change. So Victoria is an amazing strategic meditation advocate, coach, creator, and works at an executive level with all sorts of leaders across the board. Victoria, how are you seeing this in the people that you're working with? And then tell us a little bit more about the work you do.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So who I work with is energy sensitive and energy aware leaders and owners. And so they come to me, especially if they find that the work that they love to do stresses them out. And so they want to clear that stress and release the guilt of the fact that, oh my God, I'm doing what I love and it stresses me out. What do I do about that? How do I do this better? And so as the world's first business Reiki master, I'm a certified life coach, performance coach, and working with executives here in New Jersey as well as online. I teach them how to practice strategic meditation as well as weave that as a lifestyle throughout the work that they do with themselves so that they end up being grounded and clear in mind, body, and business. And you can find me at everyonestrategicmeditation.com. And Nettie is an incredible organizer of the mind. So she works with people who are chronically disorganized, but who are high performing, to optimize themselves and their systems to take their lives and businesses to the next level. Nettie, how do you see this with your executives as well? And can you tell everyone a bit about yourself?
Yeah, so honestly, a lot of times I see this in a lack of confidence. They're seeing just this, as you described it, stress is coming in. It's compounding their ability, their inability to make decisions. And then it's showing up as consistently somebody saying, "Oh, I'm just not very confident. I don't know how to do this part of my job. I can't figure it out, or I'm failing at this part." I've even had people say, I just never finish things. And, it's easy after we start talking to see that those statements aren't necessarily true, but there is a structural problem that needs to be addressed. And that is where the systems that Victoria is talking about come into play, because you can absolutely make your own system of success based on how you work, how you operate, what you're reaching for, that is going to take you to that next level, help you reach your goals. People can find out more about me, especially on LinkedIn, and also at saparigroup.com. So let's talk about decision fatigue. What is decision fatigue?
Yeah. So, as we were saying at the beginning, this is when you're fresh out of decisions to give. It's a state of mental exhaustion. I personally would define
Mhm.
it, where um, you have a creative vision, you have opinions, you have things that you want to say, but at a certain point, you hit a mental wall where I like the thought of choosing a definitive outcome and going with it is too exhausting to take. Like you run into that mental wall. What about you, Nettie? How would you define it?
So I would add that a lot of people feel this as irritability. That sheer exhaustion. What's going to happen is the next person who comes into your office to ask you a decision, to ask you a question, you respond with irritability. It's as if you can't even put the pieces together. Somebody could come in, you've been making decisions about important deals, important um, uh, life-changing whatevers all day long, and you're nailing it, and then somebody comes to you and says, what do you think, the pink one or the blue one? And you're like, I don't know. Well, you have now experienced decision fatigue. Think of it kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. You are capable of making decisions up to the point where you're not. And it is an actual physical problem. It's not a spiritual problem in the sense that, you're not, or a moral problem. You're not a bad person. You're not, if you are not typically irritable, but you are once too many, things are coming at you. Like, this is a physical problem that has to do with your brain. It's not broken. It's actually operating perfectly. It's doing exactly what it needs to do. It's telling you, hey, we're done. Time to shut down. If you try and make any more decisions from this point forward, you will harm yourself or others. It's why when you set out on your fabulous, new meal plan, diet plan in the morning, you are eating lush green salads with fresh vegetables and all the most wonderful macro whatever that's available. And by the afternoon, you are pulling up to a package of Oreos.
Pulling up.
Pulling up.
Let's go.
You've already done it. You just peel back that like top layer and dig in. So it's a physical problem in that the decisions are housed, the decision making is housed in your prefrontal cortex, part of your brain. This part of your brain is the last part of your brain that was developed. It's the most susceptible because it's actually evolutionarily the last part of your brain that was, on an evolutionary standpoint, developed, most susceptible to outside influence, and the most energy intensive. And when you get to the end of the day, you've probably used up the energy stores that are necessary in order for it to operate properly, which is why you get into the kind of fight or flight. You get irritable. Everything feels like it's coming at you. You see things as danger instead of an opportunity for creativity, because this part of your brain has gone offline and you are now in this reactive mode of survival, which is why the Oreos are great. Just give me food. I don't care what it is. You know, there are certain things that your body is looking for at that time. And it is your most basic needs.
Mhm.
Being a physical problem, we can address it in structural, physical ways and bring it back online, give it what it needs. So do not think of this as a problem that is unsolvable, or that there's anything wrong with you. Everything is operating exactly as designed, and all the indicator lights just went off on your dashboard that said low fuel engine light, like lube light for your, your oils down, like everything just started lighting up, right? And now we need to address it immediately. If you don't want to get to that point, then we need to find a way to ensure that you are consistently keeping all the systems at the right levels. Uh,
Mm.
so what happens though when you're not necessarily keeping those systems at the right levels and the decision fatigue starts showing up in your day-to-day, in your leadership, in your work? Like what do you see that showing? How do you see that showing up for your clients, Victoria, when decision fatigue is on the scene?
Oh, yeah. I mean, how you do anything is how you do everything. And so I will lovingly somewhat disagree with something that you said
Yeah.
of how this is not a spiritual issue. I would be
I
remiss of
thought you
me.
might give me some pushback on that. Thank you.
Yeah. Structural issues are spiritual issues because it's a lack of values awareness. If you
Mm,
aren't clear on what your values are, you are going to struggle to lead yourself. And if you are struggling to lead yourself, you are going to struggle to lead others. And
mm,
so that is demonstrated in the systems and structures which you adhere to or not
right.
throughout the day, but it comes back to a lack of values, and our values are basically a spiritual issue because it's a guiding, how do you say, causational first cause issue. And that's why
Mhm.
I would argue that it is a spiritual issue. And so what I'll see is that lack of personal values awareness, your own standards, your lack of your own standards, your own red lines, your own boundaries, your own beliefs, um, causes the system and structure to not be adhered to. If you believe that cutting corners is okay, you're going to have demonstrations of that belief. However, if you believe that integrity is everything. If I said I'm not eating sugar, to take your nutritional
Mhm.
um
Right.
example, if you believe, if you have a clear red line, or for myself, if you believe in not consuming alcohol for yourself, that is then going to be reflected in everything else that you do. So in my to answer your question,
Mhm.
therefore, when I host retreats, I have a very clear line that says no alcohol. None. We're not doing wine and women or wine and networking or beer and networking and all of that type of stuff or the cocktail bar, etc. Or no, you can't come to meditation with a bottle of red. No, you can't. And I've had plenty of people want to. So for me, that's a personal value that I abide by, a personal standard of remaining drug and alcohol and smoke free because I wasn't always drug, alcohol, and smoke free. So I know how it can be a great time. And I don't want that time anymore. And so how I do anything is how I do everything. It reflects then in the business. And so when people come who are coming to my retreats or meditations or masterminds and brainstorming circles looking to network and connect who have different values, they will buck up against that structure. And at the end of the day, when I'm tired and I have no decisions left to give, my willpower has run out, but what remains are my standards.
Hmm.
And because I have clear values and set standards that I'm aware of, what I believe, I personally would say at a spiritual, or if you don't want to be spiritual about it, a philosophical level, those philosophies are going to be the scaffolding that supports the leadership structures, the interactions, the communications, the systems, and so forth that comes afterward, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. It makes sense. And I take your values and your philosophies and beliefs. I call them in in my system speak pre-made decisions. So when you make decisions ahead of time, when you are in full cognitive mode where you can use all your faculties, then when those faculties are offline, those decisions were already made, and you don't have to run the risk of willpower or decision fatigue, because now we're just looking back on relying on pre-made decisions. So pre-made decisions, setting your beliefs and your standards, these are ways to combat decision fatigue. And we're going to talk about some other ways too, because we said like there is a way to ensure you never get to that decision fatigue state. That is truly the dashboard lighting up all the indicator lights that the system is down, right? And we don't want that to be the case. But let's say you haven't taken the time for really setting your standards, your beliefs, you haven't taken the time to set those pre-made decisions, and now what you're seeing in the office, in your leadership, is just reactive mode. So the fallout from decision fatigue is reactive mode. It is a lowering of standards. It is, making a decision you would have never made in the past, or not being able to make a decision at all, becoming completely indecisive around something that's important. So addressing this issue, as much as it is totally normal and a natural part of like the system working, if you are operating from this mode more than maybe once in a while, once a month, once every quarter, if you're operating from this mode regularly, today is the day that you make the decision that it stops. Because as I said, it's a sign that your system has gone offline. And that as a leader is not an option. Your number one job is to make decisions. If you can't do that, then you need to step out and reset until you can.
Mhm. Yeah, a really great exercise is to write your never again list.
Mm,
That is a list of decisions that you may not have been consciously aware or taken the time to write out of absolutely not, never again. Like for me personally, I had an experience of taking clients during the holiday season, right? So
Mhm.
that's between December 15th and January 15th. And I love the work that I do. I'm very passionate about it. But earlier on in my career, I was taking clients like the week of around Christmas, which is a very significant time for me and my family. And I missed out on an experience that to this day, everyone else shares in my family except for me. Uh,
Mm.
and so that was a never again moment for me. Not that I don't love the work that I do, it is because I love the work that I do so much that I respect that I need boundaries on when I'm going to be loving and when I need to be resting and present
Mhm.
to the people that I care about. You're a It's so good to give yourself time to make decisions about the future now as much as you can, automating decisions as much as you can, such as when you'll be working out, when you'll be having the meeting with your colleagues,
Mhm.
when you'll be recording the videos, etc. Um, Following Barbara Corcoran, the female shark from Shark Tank, she says she always writes what she's going to do tomorrow before she goes to bed at night. And that, like, she gets a sticky note, writes out, like, what are the three boulders, big
Mhm.
boulder tasks she wants to see happen the next day, so that when she wakes up, she can just go. And so though that would be two things that I would suggest, two exercises. The never again list, because that's especially good for you as a woman leader who has convinced herself that you're not decisive.
Mm.
With love, do not buy the lie. Do not keep feeding the hype that you are indecisive. You're a leader. By virtue of the fact that you have people who rely on you, you are decisive. They look to you. So the more that you self hypnotize by saying, "Oh, I'm an indecisive person. I can never make up my mind," or blah, 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 like trying to shrink away from the power, gift, and responsibility that you have. No, change the story. Because if you give yourself 5 minutes on a timer with notes, with your notes app or a piece of paper, in 5 minutes you could write, "I will never again." And it might all be personal, right? I'm trying to get some business ones out there, but give yourself 5 minutes on the timer. You will find your never again list, especially if you think you're indecisive. So that's one. And then two, I would suggest also that before bed, make the decision to automate it for tomorrow or later, of like,
Mhm.
oh, every Monday I'm doing this, or every 15th, etc. What
Mhm.
about you, Nettie? What would you suggest are ways to not just raise awareness about decision fatigue, but all right, they've got it. What do we do about it?
Yeah, I think there's a couple different kind of ways that I would look at this. One of the ways is to reduce the number of decisions. And your example of picking three things before bed is one way uh, to pre-make a decision, but also to reduce the number of decisions the next day. You're starting out with a plan already in place. But there's other ways that we can reduce the number of decisions just in our life, especially if around things that aren't super important to us. You'll notice that there are a lot of well-established leaders that don't pick out their clothes every day. They have somebody pick them out, or they have a uniform where that's like they wear the same thing every day. And maybe you don't like this idea, fine, pick 5 different colors of the same pants and then 5 tops that match, and you can mix and match your uniform, but you're really reducing that number of decisions. You might reduce your decision making by having like a food service deliver dinner to you every day so that you just know it's there. You can be creative on the weekend or whatever, but during the week, you ensure that that need is met without having to make decisions around it. Another way to reduce decisions is any amount of system planning, any amount of documenting a process. You are making the decision once and then you are following that plan such that when it comes to a thing popping up, what's the next step? Oh, we're just looking at Well, what does it say? What does it say the next step is, and not trying to figure it out on the fly. So reducing the decision making in the first place, coming up with a process or system that you write down so you don't have to think about it a second time. And then the last thing I would say is keeping your brain at an optimal level so you can make decisions throughout the day. If this is a high energy intensive activity, which it is, then throughout the day, taking what I call productive rest. And that looks like, a walk in between your meetings, drinking water, fresh fruits and vegetables, meditating to slow your body down, grounding yourself in any way, shape, or form. If you work from home, you could take a shower in the middle of the day. This is a wonderful, reset for your body and mind. Um, if you are doing these things throughout the day, you will get to a point where you will not get to that point where all the lights are going off on the dashboard, even if you have a lot of big decisions to make. And if you know that this is a day that you have a lot of big decisions to make, then clearing everything else off the schedule so that you can focus on those things and everything else is taken care of. In the times that I've done workshops, even though if I've live streamed them from home, I've actually made arrangements for someone else to cook that day, someone to make sure the kids are picked up from school or taken to their activities that day. I pick out my outfit ahead of time so that the only thing I'm focusing on is the big stuff that I'm making decisions in the moment about. We could probably go on for several more episodes
Yeah.
about this particular thing. And actually, you may be thinking about, wow, I'm having some of these challenges. I'd love to get your feedback about how I address this personally. And if that's you, go ahead and type connect in the comments and we will absolutely follow up with you, find a time to talk. Hey there, Melinda. Good to see you. Thanks for watching with us today and participating. So we would love to connect with you on this or anything else that's coming up for you that we might have sparked a curiosity about in the conversation. I do want to share that something that we've been thinking about and pondering over is adding an opportunity for you to come onto this show with us as a guest, as a guest to be coached. We're going to be talking more about that in our next episode. So please come back next week where we're going to share what that could look like, how you can join us, and what a live coaching session with us could be like. So we hope that you'll come back next week to hear more about that.
Yeah. This is really exciting because, gosh, what is this? Our 19th episode. So the 20th episode of Wake Up Women Leaders is going to be talking about waking you up as the listener. If you've been listening and thinking, wow, I'm really loving these topics, right? Do tell us in the comments below, as well as if you want to hear more about this one or any suggestions that you have. But especially next week, we want to bring one of our listeners up so that you can help us help the women leaders of the community wake up by sharing your unique situation and opening up to having some live coaching from the two of us, Nettie and I, here live on the podcast. So if that speaks to you, comment below, say me, right? Or reach out. We would love to hear it. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next one. Big hugs and love. Mwah. Bye for now.